testing garbage. Testing garbage. Right. Alright, so maybe we can actually read this shit without it freezing. I'm your host, ETTemplar, Supreme Misfit, Professional Dipshit. We're reading this live. If we get some live viewers, that'd be cool. If not, welcome to this after it's been live. And yes, this is human radiation fucking experiments. So from what I have read, just scanning through this, interestingly enough, these are radiation experiments conducted by the Department of Energy. Some of these having to do with trying to combat bone cancer, tumors, and using experimental medicines to try and combat forms of tumors and cancers. And it also talks about earlier experiments and stuff like that. And of course, during the 1940s, 1950s, our government actually just straight up injected people unknowingly with fucking plutonium. I think there was a guy out in New Mexico that was involved in a near-death truck crash, and our government decided, hey, this guy's almost dead. Let's fucking inject him with plutonium and see what happens. And this poor fucking bastard in the hospital, they injected him with plutonium multiple times, and they even pulled his fucking teeth without anesthetics. So this wasn't the only case. There's about 8 or 9 other cases of our government intentionally injecting people with fucking plutonium, a radioactive substance, just to see, oh, what happens, right? So I think what most of these in the 90s, these were people who volunteered. I think. I'm not entirely sure. But let's get to reading, shall we? Oh boy. So, all right, now that the shit is freezing, we can actually scroll this and read this motherfucker. So, basically, this is stating, you know the story of the radio one? What? So this is just saying that this provided a roadmap, documentation, of the different experiments. We can skip that. That's some boring shit. Of course, introduction, saying what some of these tests were. All right, can we get down? Summarizing and listing experiments. About the list. So I don't think it goes into too much information. This is just a list of experiments. But here we go. Plutonium injection. Radium girls. Oh yeah. Or they all painted each other with radium, the glow in the dark shit. They all got skin cancer. Yeah, I'm familiar with that one. So plutonium injection. During 1945 to 1947, 18 persons were injected with amounts of plutonium at the Manhattan Engineer District Hospital in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, 1 patient. At Strong Memorial Hospital in Rochester, New York, 11 patients. At Billings Hospital of the University of Chicago, 3 patients, and at the University Hospital of the University of California in San Francisco, 3 patients. Extera was obtained from the patients and sent to Los Alamos for plutonium analysis. These data were to establish the mathematical equations describing plutonium excretion rates. So basically, they were injecting these people with fucking plutonium to see how it would have effects on the human bodies. And I guess they would need to know this, but there comes a point where it's yeah, it's a radio. I'm laughing because it's so morbid, right? I mean, we know it's radiation, but I guess some egghead wanted to have mathematical equations on the half-life of it being processed through a human body, I guess. That, and we'll get back to reading. This research was funded by Manhattan Engineer District. Follow-up studies were supported by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission and U.S. Energy Research and Development Administration. This experiment was referenced by the Marquet Report, including the DOE roadmaps in February 19 1995. Those are references. Let's see. Argonne National Laboratory. Radiation is experimental therapy or treating mental disorders in 𝕿𝖒𝖕 State Hospital in 𝕿𝖒𝖕, Illinois. So I guess they decided, fuck it, we're gonna inject radium into crazy people's brains. Like, I don't understand this. You know, I'm not a scientist, but I guess fuck it. Why not, right? If you're a government agency and you're not going to go to jail for doing evil shit, why not inject radium into fucking people's brains? Patients in a state mental hospital were injected with radium as an experimental therapy for mental disorders. Oh, yeah, you're feeling down, you're depressed, maybe you're schizophrenic. We're gonna inject radium into your brain, you see? Oh my God. This is horrific. This is absolutely horrific. The experiment appears to have been conducted with the 𝕿𝖒𝖕 State Hospital in 𝕿𝖒𝖕, Illinois between 1931 and 1933. So, of course, these were probably done without their consent. And, like, this is 1931-33, so, yeah, these people were like, oh, fuck it. We got some crazy people who don't know the time and day, and technically they're not people because they're crazy, and we're gonna inject radiological shit into their fucking brains. Alrighty. I'll get back to reading here in just a second. Oh, man. Sharing out the link, see if we can get some get some fucking views in here. All right, in 1931, 1933, documents indicate that 70 to 450 micrograms of radium -226, Ra-226, were injected. This experiment occurred prior to the establishment of the Argonne National Laboratory and the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. So, even more shady. The Argonne National Laboratory later collected records and attempted to locate the subjects. Well, good luck, because, I mean, they probably would have died of fucking brain cancer. Researchers believe that if the patients could be located and body content measurements made in the 1950s, a valid retention curve for radium in humans over several decades could be constructed. Argonne National Laboratory made all later measurements. The records contain information regarding radium content of the located subjects. So I guess some of them lived somehow. Medical information relating to subjects, admission to the hospital, periodic medical examination results, and causes of death, and death certificates for deceased subjects, previously described in number 31 in the original list of the 48 experiments included by DOE in 1994. Included in the DOE roadmap, February 1995. So, of course, some of these people, I guess, lived for a while. And, of course, so our government knowingly injected mentally ill people with fucking radium-226, and some of them died, and they actually put this on their death certificates. Let's see. Don't wear smoke, man. I think this is all references. So we're already off to a doozy. Radium-226 as a cure for mental illness. Effect of phosphorus-32 on hemoglobin metabolism in polycythemia rubra vera. These are big words that, all right, let's get to reading. The study was conducted by Health Division of the Metallurgical Laboratory at the University of Chicago, at the University Hospital's Hematology Clinic, 6 patients, and at the University of Minnesota, 1 patient. 5 5 patients were administered 15 to 40 microcurines of phosphorus 32, and 2 patients were injected with undetermined amounts of P32 in a study of metabolism of hemoglobin in man. These experiments took place between October 1944 and 1945. Again, this mentions nothing if these were people who volunteered for the experiments or if these were just unknowingly tested on people. I would think they would have to at least... Now, they could have done this secretly and the people could have not known the wiser. Previously described on number 10, the original list of 48 experiments released by the Department of Energy in 1994, included in the DOE roadmap, February 1995. All right, it goes up here. PU-239, the purpose of the study was to investigate the gastrointestinal absorption and fecal excretion rate of ingested plutonium. What? Holy shit. Okay, so that one's a different one. We're jumping. Okay. Plutonium ingestion study? In May 1946, 6 male employees of the Metallurgical Laboratory of the Manhattan Engineer District in Chicago drank a water solution containing about 0.1 nanocurie of plutonium-239. People volunteered for this? Again, this doesn't say if these were... Hey, plutonium-239. PU-239. The purpose of the study was to investigate the gastrointestinal absorption and fecal excretion rate of ingested plutonium. Holy shit. Researchers are also hope to use the results to improve the interpretation of previously collected data on persons occupationally exposed to plutonium. Participation in the experiment was voluntary. Oh my god. And the amounts of plutonium ingested were sufficiently low to barely detectable in urine and feces, with instrumentation available in 1946. At least 2 of the subjects were still alive in 1994. Previously described in number 7, original and 48 experience, blah, blah, blah. People, like, you have to be a whole nother form of just a brave person to frickin' drink water with 0.18 nanocurie of plutonium-239 just to see what the human body happens. I shudder to think what kind of experiments we're doing today. You know, it really makes you wonder. ANL-4 arsenic 76 biodistribution and excretion studies. Arsenic 76. This study was conducted by the Argonne National Laboratory in 1947 in Chicago. 12 hospital patients were injected intravenously with arsenic 76 fucking poison, administered as potassium arsenite. To study the uptake, retention, distribution, and excretion of arsenic. Subjects included 5 males and 7 females, all between the ages of 18 to 67 years, and hospitalized with leukemia, Hodgkin's disease, polycythemia rubra, I think that's blood cancer, melanoma, carcinoma, and carcinoma of the patrioid. Amounts of AS administered were 0.5 to 15.4 millicuries. Study showed that as AS-76 rapidly distributed through the body, failed to localize in tumors or lymphatic tissue, and was rapidly excreted in urine via intestinal tract. The study was supported by the U.S. Atomic Commission, the therapeutic administration of arsenic-76 trioxide was attempted in 1948 on 19 patients with tumors of the hematopoietic system. This therapy resulted in no significant remission of disease. So again, we go back to the beginning that some of these tests were tests to try and combat cancer, I guess. And I guess it's a noble for some of these people to volunteer for that. And I guess some of these people did have, some of them had blood cancer, some of them had other forms of cancer. So whoever these people were, whoever these people were, fucking heroes. Like, I can't imagine, even for the sake of advancing science or to try and find a cure for cancer. That's crazy. Whole body counter calibration with sodium. Hematological effects of total body X-ray irradiation. Oh my god. Uptake of tritated died by human tooth. Studies of biochemical effects of total X-rays in humans. Biochemical effects. Studies of metabolism are arsenic 76. Did we just read all that, or is that a new one? Like a single dose X-rays in helpful area. Therapeutic potential, arsenic 76. So let's continue with this arsenic 76 stuff, because that seems kind of... Between 1948 and 1956, studies were conducted at the Departments of Medicine and Surgery in the Universities of Chicago and Argonne National Laboratory on the value of arsenic 76 as internally administered radiotherapeutic agent. The purpose of these studies is to determine the effects of arsenic 76 on oh my god. Hematopoietic blood-forming tissues on 24 hospital patients with leukemia, and on the potential effectiveness of arsenic 76 as treatment for several different malignant tumors in an additional 19 patients. Arsenic 76, 17 to 90 millicures were administered intravenously to 24 patients with tumors on the hematopoietic tissues, 2 with polycythemia vera, which is blood cancer, and 1 with a metastatic carcinoma of the stomach, so stomach cancer. Arsenic 76 was found to be about as effective as any other commonly used therapy agents. Remissions were induced in some cases of leukemia, multiple myeloma, and metastatic carcinoma. So I guess arsenic 76, what it says here, commonly used therapy agent, remissions were induced in some cases of leukemia. So arsenic 76 apparently could be used to combat cancer. That's interesting. I'll have to see what the hell arsenic 76 is. It's probably an isotope of arsenic, or maybe like I don't know. Like I said, I'm a layman here, just reading fancy big words. But in the follow-up study, the researchers studied the biological effects of AS76 on normal hematopoietic tissues. I'm probably butchering that, such as the liver, spleen, and bone marrow. Tissue biopsies were obtained before and after administration of AS76 from 19 patients with leukemia, polycythemia vera, and multiple myeloma. The amounts as 76 administered range from 12 to 88 millicures. Patients received 1 to 4 AS76 injections. Normal tissue biopsies were evaluated for signs of cellular deconstruction after AS76 injection. Results of these studies showed that AS76 occasionally produced cellular damage, decreased cellularity, but there was little evidence of cytolysis or inhibition of cellular proliferation. Results were similar to those observed earlier with nitrogen mustard chemotherapy. God, that sounds nasty. Nitrogen mustard chemotherapy. Yikes. This work was supported by the American Cancer Society, the U.S. Public Health Service, and the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. So again, some of these I'm not really picking up that it's. It seems a lot of it is, of course, like this one to treat blood cancer, various forms of cancer, to little to like minuscule effect. Study of detectron metabolism. I don't know what that is. Well, let's keep going through this document, see what other interesting. But that is interesting about that arsenic. What was it? 73. Arsenic AS-76 injection. So what I'm getting from this is maybe the later experiments. So it seems like they're trying to find or develop like therapeutic cures to cancer. Cesium-132. Ew. This one sounds interesting. Whole body counter calibration using hospital patients administered cesium-132. Whole body counter calibration. Nice. The thing that has me is it does say people have volunteered, but sometimes you'll read this and it'll say injected as, and then they'll give this other name. There was in here later where they were injecting people with something and they said it was injected as like B12, right? Which is as a vitamin. So I think some of these cases, some of these people are literally being experimented on by the fucking Department of Energy without them knowing about it, because it'll say administered as. And again, we don't really get it too much because these are just the summary of experiments conducted. So we don't really see if these are, I mean, it does say some people are volunteers, but I don't think it would say they weren't volunteers if they weren't, right? So whole body counter calibration using hospital patients using cesium-132. Between 1955 and 1964, measurements of radionucleotides in subjects from natural sources and from fallout from atmospheric weapons testing were made at Argonne National Laboratory using whole body counter. The whole body counter was calibrated for potassium measurements by administering known amounts of potassium-42, K43 to subjects, both laboratory employees and hospital patients. The whole body counter was also calibrated for cesium by administering known amounts of cesium-132 to separate group of hospital patients. The number of subjects and amounts administered from calibration purposes were not stated. These subjects showered dressed in activity-free garments and were then counted 50 minutes measurements. The calibration factors were used over a period of several years to determine trends in fallout uptake. This work was supported by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. Okay, so that's it. Okay. So fallout of atmospheric. So it's also them. These crazy fucking people are volunteering to be potassium-42. So it seems like this was to, in the layman's terms, was to see how it would affect the human body over a distance of time. Just in actively free garments and were then counted for 50-minute measurements. The calibration of factors were used over a period of several years. So these people volunteered for years just to see how it would affect the human body. And, well, so I guess they did discover, in theory, like how the body would react over time to fallout. Oh, and potassium for subjects. So I guess the Department of Energy, it's not just the Department of Energy. They're also doing all sorts of this like weird, obscure research. Absorption and dissolution of atmospheric and inhaled radon? Oh, oh, oh. Like, I can't even imagine what your body would go through with some of these tests, right? You had those guys drinking, like, milliliters of like, plutonium? This is wild. I can see where, like, science would be interested, but this is, like, Fallout level crap. Okay, so let's read about this one. Absorption and dissolution of atmospheric and inhaled radon. I don't even know what radon is. 1956, 9 Argonne National Laboratory employees participated in experiments to study the natural levels of radium in subjects by measuring radon gas exhalation. In order to improve the accuracy of radium estimates, scientists at the Argonne National Laboratory sought ways to distinguish between radon produced in the body and radon absorbed by the body from the environment. These required 2 new experiments, one to measure the amount of atmospheric radon absorbed through the skin, the other to estimate the amount of atmospheric radon dissolved in the body. In the first experiment, 2 subjects were immeasured for several hours in an atmosphere containing elevated levels of radon gas. So 2 people. I took 2 people and shoved them in a fucking room or container. Was like, hey, we're gonna gas you with radon gas to see how it affects your body. And people volunteered for this. Like, yikes. During the period of exposure, they breathed from a radon-free air supply. The purpose of this experiment was to measure the amount of exhaled radon that might result from the absorption of environmental radon through the skin. One subject was exposed for several hours in a room in which radon concentration was in the range of 120 to 144 picocuries of radon per liter in the air. The same subject was later exposed for several hours while enclosed to the neck in a bag containing 180 picocuries of radon per liter of air. A second subject was exposed for several hours while enclosed to the neck in a bag containing 310 to 340 microcuries of radon per liter in the air. In the second experiment, 8 subjects, including one participating in the first experiment, were exposed to either 8 or 72 hours in a room where the radon gas maintained at elevated levels in a range from 48 to 107 picocuries of radon per liter air. The subject's radon exhalation rates were measured at the end of the exposure period in order to provide a baseline information for the interpretation of radon exhalation data from subject exposed to the environmental radon. The goal of both experiments was to provide a measure of the natural radium content of subjects based in the exhalation of radon internally and generated from the decay of natural radium. These experiments were funded by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. Okay, so that's it. This is absorption and distribution of atmospheric radon. I have to look up, so give me a second. I'm going to look up what radon even is, so I can get a figure. Radon is naturally occurring radioactive gas that is invisible, odorless, and can be harmful to your health. These guys were bathing in a bag of it and inhaling it. So it's formed through natural decay of uranium, thorium, and radiation in rocks. Okay, so I can see where this experiment was going. Radiation exposure to high levels of radon is a leading cause of lung cancer, making it crucial to test for and mitigate in homes, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and American Lung Association. So it's not that, I mean, in my humble opinion, when I'm reading this shit sounds terrible because I'm like a layman, like ghoul and goblin, right? So it seems that the Department of Energy, with most of these, it seems like they're trying to, experiment. So better understand the effects of just radiation with this radon gas that's naturally occurring from decomposing radioactive elements, because they probably, like in 1956, probably thought there's going to be a nuclear fucking war. So they need to know this information on hand. And I think that's what some of these tests are, because they want to know this shit, right? Because if the future was nuclear war, which our future might be nuclear war, let's be honest, it's a good thing that they have this information, but I don't think it's a good thing that they're using it to test human fucking patients or humans. But it is wild to me that in this experiment, they took some of these people and fucking put them in a bag of radon gas up to the neck. And some of these guys, they had inhaled radon gas. So I don't know if these people who volunteered for this, if they were paid well. But this one comes exactly from people, scientists, God bless them, from the Argonne National Laboratory that volunteered for this. So part of me is horrified, yet part of me is amazed that there are people willing to put their life and health on the line. So science and the Department of Energy can understand how this affects the human body and get better knowledge from it. Me personally, I think they could just do this with animals and scale it up through mathematics. But I guess the best way is and some of these experiments, if it's voluntary, this is where we go back to, if it's voluntary, whatever, if you're paying people and they're not being strong-armed into it, whatever. But earlier when we were reading about them injecting like radium into fucking crazy people's brain in an insane asylum, now I know that shit's illegal, because if you're insane, you still have rights and autonomy, right? And that one was wild to me when we read it earlier. And some of those people died as a result of getting radiation in the fucking brain in the 1930s. So with some of these experiments, some of them are legitimate and done through, but you can't tell me the one at the insane asylum where they were injecting radium into people's like fucking brains, that was legal and that was done above board. So, and some of these are just interesting other tests with different elements. This one, again, and we see carbon-14 and tritium. Let's see some of these stuff. I have to look at what is tritium. So tritium is a radioactive isotope of hydrogen, a colorless, odorless gas that decays half-life about 12.3 years into. Okay, so tritium. So this test right here, this one, studies the use of tritium and carbon-14 labeled as bile acids in metabolic studies. So this, if I'm not mistaken, was to test the effects of tritium, which is a result of hydrogen, right? So this was probably a test to judge how the human body would process the radioactive isotopes if you survived from a fucking hydrogen bomb. Which I think if you survived a hydrogen bomb, I think you'd want to be fucking dead, because anyways, someone apparently at the Argonne National Laboratory was like, hey, let's see how it affects the human body. We'll read this one since we mentioned it. Alrighty, here we go. In the early 1970s, investigators at the ANO, Argonne National Laboratories, participated in experiments to study the role of bile acids in 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖑𝖆𝖗 formation. These experiments were conducted through various phases at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. The work was part of an effort to determine whether bile acids labeled with tritium H3 were used in human metabolic studies, also to determine whether compounds labeled with stable isotopes could be used in place of radioactivity labeled compounds. Okay, so I'm wrong in that one, but they could also, from this study, I think, discover how that would affect the stomach. So again, this is the Department of Energy, after reading this part, is using tritium, an isotope, to treat stomach cancer, if that's what I'm getting from it. 2 healthy subjects were injected intravenously with 46 microcures of carnodihoxychloric acid. I butchered that. Sorry, I'm not a fucking scientist. Quinodeoxychloric acid, labeled H3, and 10 microcures of whatever that is, acid labeled with carbon -14. So, of course, they're using carbon alongside it to maybe track how it's absorbed to the stomach. The series of experiments were conducted to determine the metabolic fate and excretion routes of various labeled bile acids in other series. Bile acids labeled with carbon 13 and 14 were administered orally to an unknown number of facilitating patients. Administered orally to an unknown number of facilitating patients. So in the 1970s, they're testing this shit on an unknown number of patients. So this, to me, now this one I think would be under the category where people get arrested for. Unknown number of facilitating patients. So they have patients in this hospital in Minnesota where they're injecting this carbon 13 and 14 alongside with a radioactive isotope, and people, holy shit, and they don't know that they're being essentially tested, experimented on. Bile and serum samples were obtained for the evaluation of bile acid content, the purpose of to evaluate the use of C13 labeled bile acids in the measurement against conventional methods based on carbon 14 labeled acids to validate bile acid kinetic measurements based on serum sampling, and to establish procedures for the simultaneous measurement of all bile acids. The estimated radiation doses to subjects were 2.8 millirems from H3 and 21 millirems from carbon 14, committed effective dose equivalent to the whole body. Both experiments indicated that radioactively labeled as well as stable isotope labeled bile acids were suitable for kinetic studies on bile acids in humans. Methods used stable isotope labels were intended to increase patient comfort and eliminate the need for hospitalization. Increase patient comfort. So, obviously, if you're injecting people with a radioactive isotope, of course, you're going to be fucking sick. So this goes alongside with my theory that this particular experiment was done to unknowing people, because this other carbon 13 and 14 is used to increase patient comfort. And this goes from the 1940s, this entire document, 1940s to 1990s. So if this has been going on since 1933, right, was the earliest case where they were injecting radium into people's brains, right? I shudder to know, like, I shudder to think what kind of experiments are being conducted on us, like, right now. It really makes you want, it sends a chill up my spine, let me tell you. Iodine-133 dye is treating Graves' disease and metastatic carcinoma of the thyroid. So this one right here, studies of tritium and carbon-14 labeled as biohazard. This one to me sounds like this experiment was done on unknowing hospital patients, to me anyway. And of course, these are just summaries of experiments. The additional information is either classified or not available in this document. So some of these are pretty self-explanatory, like this one. When you read effectiveness of iodine-131 in diagnosing, treating Graves' disease and metastatic carcinoma of the thyroid. But we might give it a read anyway since we're here. In 1950, Brookhaven National Laboratory conducted a study on the use of iodine-131, I-131, to treat patients with metastatic carcinoma of the thyroid, so thyroid cancer, or Graves' disease. Patients of the study were sent to Brookhaven Memorial Hospital in New York City. In the study, therapeutic dose of 4 to 360 millicuries of iodine-131 was given patients the exact dose dependent in part of the number of metastases and other previous radiation treatment. Graves' disease patients who were unsuitable for surgery therapy were treated with I-131 in dose of 6 to 20 millicuries. Pardon me if I have to look up what Graves' disease is real quick. So this is a learning thing for everyone. Graves' disease is an autoimmune disorder which causes the thyroid gland to produce excessive thyroid hormone. Oh, okay. So it's kind of like hypothyroidism. Gotcha. Okay. So using of 131 to treat thyroid cancer. So when I read something about multiple metastases, so again, it's research for cancer. The patients were monitored for hematological damage. Metabolic studies were also conducted, including the study of effects of radiation dose on renal tubular function. 12 patients participated in the study, ranging from age 15, a minor, to 63 years old. Of the 12 patients, 8 were female. The study was conducted in conjunction with the Memorial Hospital and was funded by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, included in the DOE roadmap. Of course, we don't really, it doesn't really say the results. References, there's references. So we don't, I mean, that kind of sucks, because I want to know if the iodine-131 was effective or not. So let me look up iodine-131. Okay, so again, it's a radioactive isotope of iodine that is used to medical imaging and treatment. Okay. So this is probably how they do normal CAT scans. So this was in 1950s. So this probably laid the groundwork for the later, you know how they do full body CAT scans, right? Where you drink the liquid. It makes you feel like you're like peeing yourself or whatever. And then it scans it with a dye, if I'm not mistaken. So that's probably where the groundwork came from this. But originally, this was used as this experiment was to, of course, test to combat thyroid cancer or Graves' disease. Which I don't see how they jumped to that conclusion, but I guess it's why they're experiments. Boron neuron capture therapy. What? Okay, so here's another one that continues the iodine-131 used to measure thyroid function. Okay, so let's read this one. Boron neutron capture therapy. Brookhaven National Laboratory conducted a boron neutron capture therapy on 45 patients from 1951 to 1961. Of course, again, that's the questionable. That's a questionable timeline, right? From 1940s to 1960s, where the people involved aren't exactly volunteered. This was a time when the government was saying, "Oh, let's just fucking inject people with, you know, uh, plutonium and shit." So that's questionable. The patients were all suffering from aggressive and otherwise untreatable types of brain tumors. Fuck me, that's yikes. Such as glioblastoma multiforme or malignant glioma, glioma. All have received conventional radiation treatments. The purpose of B and CT was to attack more precisely the tumors with radiation. Destroying the tumor cells, the patients were injected with a discrete amount of boron that was intended to deposit in the tumor. The tumors were then bombarded with a beam of neurons that was directed to the boron and thus aided in destroying the tumor. The results of the therapy were unsuccessful. Fuck me, man. That's sad. Unsuccessful patients who were treated with BNC generally lived only as long as those patients. That's fucking sad, dude. With the same types of brain tumors who were treated with conventional radiation therapies. This work was funded by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. Currently, advances in technology that deliver higher concentrations of boron to the tumor tissues for potentially improved therapy have brought about the return of BNCT. As a result, Brookhaven is currently involved in BNCT research and clinical trials. As reference to the Marquee Report and summary of the DOE Roadmap, February 1990. So again, you get stuff like that. So it's interesting how they already were developing cancer treatments or forms of it in 1951. That's pretty impressive. So iodine 131. Let's see if we can find any interesting experiments or any that catch our eye. But if you've got this after it's been live, if you watched 47 minutes of me reading and reacting to this, thank you. Leave a like, leave a dislike, comment your thoughts below. It is pretty impressive that people volunteer for this. Again, it's wild that someone would volunteer for this. Either, and some of these are from people from the laboratories. And they would have to know what they're signing up for. Now let's see if we can't find something. Magnetes 54. Ugh. Oh, tablets and that's 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖑𝖆𝖗. Tritiated. Tritiated? Well, shit, regardless of me reading this stuff, we're learning all kinds of new words and shit we've never even heard about stuff. Dose relationships between iodine 131 administrations, 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖑𝖆𝑗 effects. So, stuff to do with the blood. Let's read this one since we're here. In approximately 1951, physicians in the medical department of Brookhaven National Laboratory conducted a study to examine the relationship between levels of exposure of radiation from internally administered iodine 131 and the extent of radiation induced effect to the hematopoietic blood cell forming system. In exposed subjects, scientists sought to determine a reliable indicator of I-131 radiation-induced effect, most accurate method of estimating the radiation dose delivered to tissue relative to the amount of I-131 administered. So the amount of absorption in the blood of I-131 relative to the amount received. So So the amount of I-131 injected to how much your body would absorb as amount injected, I guess, into the hematopoietic system by administration of large amount of I-131. I bet that is not fun at all. You know, you read this shit and you have to wonder, like, how some of this shit would feel like. Study subjects were 33 patients with various metabolic rates associated with 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝑔𝖆𝖗, a condition associated with low thyroid activity. Hypothyroid, slight depression of thyroid function. That's me. So I would have been one of these fucking people. Euthyroid, normal thyroid function, and hypothyroid, overactivity of the thyroid. That's me. Some subjects have had a history of prior I-131 administrations in tracer or therapeutic amounts. So again, this is them trying to use a radioactive material to fix thyroid, but I don't think that's. I'm no genius, but injecting radiation to your fucking thyroid, I don't think it's gonna fix it. That's like a chemical imbalance. Not to get too personal, but that, you know, if you have hypothyroidism, you gotta take, you know, something to offset the hormones or whatever your thyroid's making to offset it with the stuff that isn't. So I don't know exactly. Maybe this was for research of thyroid cancer. Subjects received tracer amounts of 131, followed a few weeks later in at least 18 cases by the administration of therapeutic amount of I-131 for the total amounts of between 52 to 47 millicures. All doses were administered orally. Blood and urine specimens were collected at intervals of analyzed radioactivity. Differential white cell counts were obtained by at least 30 days after each I-131 administration to monitor changes in the lymphocyte and neutrophil counts over the time relative pre-treatment. The results suggested that there was a reasonably good correlation between therapeutic amounts of I-131 and the lymphatic system response, and that the magnitude of the radiation dose to the hematopoietic system from any given amount influenced by a variety of factors, primarily the individual's metabolism of iodine. So they're saying that depending on the person's metabolism, that affected absorption into the blood depending on that. The lymphocyte count was found to be the most sensitive and reliable measure of the magnitude of the radiation effect induced by the exposure to I-131. The fall of the lymphocyte count following administration large amounts of I-131 correlated well with the microcures administered, but poorly with the integrated blood concentration of I-131, together with the factor representing the integrated amount of 131 remaining in the body. The study was supposed by the U.S. Department of Energy. Now let me scroll back up. I-130. Boy, you have to pardon me, it takes a while to piece together what the fuck we just read. So for a layman, so this was to test how, okay, I got it. So this was to test how I-131 affected the different states of people's thyroid. So you had hypothyroidism, normal thyroid, and the underactive thyroid, right? So this was to test the different effects of I-131 across various suspects or various test subjects to see how it affected their blood and metabolism and how it got processed. So of course that is to, I guess if I was to piece together here, to test the exposure of how radioactivity is processed through the thyroid, depending on thyroid condition. So I'll have to recant what I said earlier. It wasn't to to cure these things. It was to test the absorption and effect of the blood through different thyroid conditions. You had normal, hypo, and under hyperactive, right? So this document is pretty fucking fascinating. If you want to read more of these yourself, there is later I'll put a link in the description of where they have just all these different files that have been declassified by the government. I might scroll through here and find one more to read before I close this stream out. Thanks to anyone watching, and thanks to anyone if you caught this live. And I will say, this is pretty fucking interesting to me. And what a fun journey this is to discover what some of these things are. Like, we discovered what radon was. Of course, you know, other people are like, oh, duh, right? But from a layman's person reading this shit, it is fascinating to discover, learn new things. And how badly I'm butchering some of these scientific terms. 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖵𝖑𝖆𝖗, what? Studies of retention of vitamin B12. Interesting. Let's see if we can't find one more. For scanning brain tumors. So see, with these, since we've been following the iodine 131 and 124, there's already one here that says for scanning for brain tumors. So the Department of Energy and previous groups, it's interesting to see how this has advanced the technology of the medical field at the cost of other people's health and lives. And some of these, you know, again, we circle back to the same thing where some people volunteered and other people were probably like experimented on unbeknownst to them. So I don't, like, depending on your opinion on stuff, it's like, yikes. They roll sodium in hypertension. So it is pretty interesting that they have a summary of all these. Iron absorption. So if I can't find another interesting one. Tryptophan? Oh, fuck is tryptophan? See, isn't that a poison? God, my Google search history is going to be fucking weird. Oh, it's an amino acid for the body that cannot produce on its own. Essential amino acid. Serotonin production. Okay. So this one could be interesting. So this will be our last read for the stream. BNL, study of tryptophan metabolism using carbon-14. So again, we're using a radioactive isotope, something, to track tryptophan metabolism. Another in the 1960s, researchers at Brookhaven National Laboratory examined effects on a tryptophan metabolism in humans of the administration of tryptophan 2 labeled with carbon-14 without unlabeled tryptophan carrier. Loading studies were conducted to allow the detection of abnormal metabolism, which might not have been detected otherwise. Study subjects were 6 volunteer patients, 8 ranging from age 45 to 72 years old, 3 males, 2 whites, 1 black, 3 females. They were hospitalized on a metabolic ward with achondroplasia with osteoarthritis. 1 subject, alcoholism and gallstones, 1 subject, multiple myeloma, probably a form of cancer, and breast cancer in 1 subject. Under controlled dietary drug conditions, each patient administered 17 to 18 milligrams of DL-tryptophan 2 with 96 to 157 picocuries of C14 as a tracer. Okay, it's starting to come together. When it says tracer, that's so it can be followed throughout the body. Administered orally, except for 1 intravenous injection of DL-tryptophan 2-C14. Samples expired air urine collected 4 consecutive 24-hour periods, 1 before and 3 after administration, and blood were obtained from each patient. These samples were analyzed for C14 activity from labeled carbon dioxide C14O2 and tryptophan metabolites. Relative standard to control values, about 14 to 36% of the total C14 administered were excreted in the urine with or without the loading dose of unlabeled tryptophan. The study was supported by American Cancer Society and National Cancer Institute as U.S. Atomic Commission. So with this one, we're going to do interesting. I'm going to run this through a AI, because this one I don't really get the reason why this test is been done. So it's to track the metabolism of tryptophan, which is not normally produced in the human body. So let me hit up Grok real quick. And because I'm confused as why explain this in layman's terms. Because some of these, I can read it and get the point. So we're learning stuff together. Oh, whoops. Okay, so, all right, so wanted to study how the body processes a substance called tryptophan. Okay, is that it, really? Make proteins and other important molecules. They used a special version of tryptophan marked with a tiny amount of radioactive carbon, C14, to track how it moves through the body. Sometimes they mixed this marked tryptophan with regular unmarked tryptophan to see if it changed how the body handled it. The study involved 6 patients. Okay, we already had that. Controlled, each patient given a small amount. The researchers collected samples, patient's breath, urine, over 4 days to see how much radioactivity or other breakdown products, tryptophan. They compared these results to valued unusual patterns in the body processed tryptophan. Found about 19 to 36% of the C14 was passed through the urine, while not extra unmarked tryptophan was given. The study was funded, so why would this experiment be done? What's the purpose? So it's just to study how tryptophan is processed. Is that it? So we're burning all this time? Okay. Identify the abnormal patterns of tryptophan metabolism, especially in patients with conditions like cancer. Oh, okay. Got it. Patients with conditions like cancer, multiple myeloma, breast cancer, acrodonroplasia, and osteoarthritis, or alcoholism with gallstones. These abnormalities might not show up under normal conditions, so they used loading dose. Okay. So how this was processed through people with these certain metabolic issues. And of course, that was probably an extent to try and discover a way to combat cancer. Again, this is kind of interesting how the Department of Energy all this time has been, which is kind of commendable, aside from the tests on unexpected people unknowingly in the earlier tests. So it is fascinating how the Department of Energy really is responsible for a lot of advancements in technology and research into combating different forms of cancers. So that's very interesting that the Department of Energy, you wouldn't figure the Department of Energy to be involved with this stuff. That's why this is so fucking interesting to me. And of course, reading about all these different experiments, you see, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a scientist, like really bad. And of course, I've had different plans, but I still find this shit very interesting. And so I'll wrap this one up. We might read from this again later. So keep a lookout for that if anyone's interested. And of course, if you've caught the stream and you've watched over an hour of me reading this, reacting, and trying to understand the stuff, hopefully you had fun. Hopefully this was entertaining. We're definitely learning shit about radioactivity, metabolism, willing and unwilling test subjects, and it's been quite the fun trip. So I'll end this stream out. Thanks for joining me, or going on this journey with me. And I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks again. Hopefully you found this as interesting as I did. It's a very niche thing, but we went from not knowing shit to discovering a lot. That's kind of fucking cool. And thank you, 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖑𝖆𝖗. I hopefully I'm pronouncing that. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching it. It very helps. It helps the channel get watch hours, which we need. So thank you. And this has been quite fun and hallucinate. I'll do another one of these tomorrow. So if you're it might be earlier, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, depending where you're at. We'll read more of these, or I'll even find a different declassified thing to read. So again, thanks for watching. God bless. Stay happy. Stay healthy. I will see you next time.